What's up guys, welcome back to the Gold Guy YouTube channel and welcome back to the Turbocharging my 2006 Subaru Impreza wagon series. In this video, I'm going to be scaling the mass airflow sensor. If you guys watched the last video, I installed bigger fuel injectors to try to fix my lean problem I'm having at boost. And it didn't fix the problem. Then after the fact, I realized I probably should rescale my mass airflow sensor since my intake manifold, chamber, pipe, whatever you want to call it, is completely custom. I fabricated it myself and it's a way different size than the stock intake manifold, pipe, housing thing. Completely different now, and it's letting in a way different amount of air, but I still have the same tune for that old stock intake manifold, which is a big problem. So in this video, I'm going to be attempting at rescaling my mass airflow sensor to try and get my AFR numbers back down into a good area under boost, and then after that I can turn up the boost. I have a slight understanding at how to rescale my mass airflow sensor. I've been doing a little bit of research, and there's a good guide I'm going to be following on the ROM Raider forum. I'll put a link to it in the description. Just a little disclaimer before we get into the video. I don't want you guys to think that this is a how-to guide or a step-by-step guide on how to rescale your mass airflow sensor. I am by no means, and you'll find out by watching this video, an expert. I'm definitely not an expert. This is my first time tuning a car. The purpose of this video is to show you guys my learning process in hopes that maybe you will learn from it too. So let's get into the video. Gonna have to take out my Bluetooth adapter. First we open up ROM Raider and then open up my ROM image. Next we want to get to the mass airflow / engine load section and then get to mass airflow sensor scaling, and this is what we are going to have to edit. First we got to get the data logs, but this is basically the only thing we're going to be changing in the end. Launch my logger. Now here's the normal logger. This is where you pick all the parameters to log, but I'm actually going to go down to this MAF tab down here and it'll show this graph. Before we do any logging with the MAF graph, we have to change a few of the data points over here. First, we have to bump the max intake temp up to at least 135, but I'm just going to do 150. And then the mass airflow range, we bump up to 0 to 200 instead of 100. So there we go. Now we're ready to log. And then basically you just start logging for about half an hour, just driving in closed loop. You don't want any sudden throttle changes, so just keep it as smooth as you can at a constant RPM. And definitely you want to be on a highway for this because you don't want to be stop and go and all that kind of stuff. So you do that, and then you log a few different kind of driving scenarios, and then you'll get a graph which will give you some data points, and then you will use these data points to change your mass airflow sensor scaling. Alright, now it's time to start up the car. The last couple times I've started it, I had a little bit of trouble. I haven't always had this problem, but since I changed the injectors, I have had it. So let's go ahead and see if it'll start up. That wasn't too bad. Alright, I have got the car started up. I'm going to go ahead and hit the record data button and we'll see if this thing works. Record any data. Alright, it looks like we've got a few dots showing up here, so I guess that means that it's working. Well, let's get out on the highway, drive for about half an hour, and see what the data tells us. Just getting on the highway now. No sudden throttle changes. Record data. Alright, it is 2:50 right now, So by 3:20 we should have enough data. I did not pick a great highway to do this. There's construction everywhere. I don't know if I'm allowed to let my foot all the way off the gas, but I just did that, so damn. And it's one lane up here. This is a terrible location. Damn it. Now we're good. This is perfect right here. Just gonna cruise like this for like as long as I can. More minutes to go. All right, just got about 25 minutes of highway logging, and then I'm gonna do the same thing over again on the same highway, but on the way home this time. All right, I'm back on the highway, and I'm gonna do another 25 to 30 minutes of logging. We're at a good speed. Let's go ahead and start to record data. There we go, it's recording. My exit is in 1 mile. It's been almost half an hour. This has been a very good run. I've kept my foot in pretty much the same position the whole time, with just a little bit of changes with hills and stuff. But I think I'm getting really good data. The next step is to record at least half an hour of just general driving. Again, I have to keep my throttle changes pretty steady. I can't just slam my foot on the gas because that'll mess up my data real bad. But here's my exit. I'm gonna stop recording data. There we go. Okay, now I can just chill for a little bit. Oh, I can turn right on red, and it's green now anyway, so. All right, now I'm gonna start recording data once again. 15 minutes into the second phase, which is general driving. For this next phase of the logging process, I'm just gonna be driving around this parking lot for like 10 minutes at very slow speeds. And I'm gonna try to keep the throttle changes very steady, like I said before. Very important to keep it steady. And now I'm doing the final stage of the logging process, which is just logging 5 minutes of idling. So I'm just sitting here in this parking lot idling. I've got about another 3 minutes left to go. There's my graph. This green dot shows where it is right now. Hopefully I did this right. Honestly, this is my first time with any of this stuff, and I don't know if I did it right or not, but I followed the directions to a T, so maybe I did it right. Now I'm back home. I've got all that data logged. About an hour and a half of driving. This over here is when I started to get into boost. You can see the MAF voltage got almost up to 4. The highest point was at about 3.72, and my corrections are crazy. They should be within like 3% correction. That's what the values are on the side, negative 50% to 30%, and mine go all the way up to about 27% correction, which confirms my suspicion that the mass airflow sensor needed to be scaled. So the next step on the guide says set the poly order, which is this, to 12, and then hit interpolate. So this gave me a nice blue line here, which is actually just the best fit line. Now for this next step, I'm going to actually change this table here. I'm going to change some of the values. Now I'm going to update my mass airflow sensor scaling of my tune. But first I need to pick the range of MAF voltage that I want to edit. Now this area right here is when I started going into boost, and that definitely needs edited. I wish I had more points in this area, but I only did a few pulls. So hey, I'm just going to go with it and we will fix it if it's not good. So I'm just going to say up to 3.7 to 1. So 1 to 3.7. That's pretty much this whole thing right here. So this step here is where I made some big mistakes. I shouldn't have added any of the voltages for boost. I should have cut it off at 2.8 volts. That's where closed loop ends and open loop begins, but you'll see that later in the video. Also, at the beginning of the idle section, I should not have added the part where it swoops down all the way at the left because that was bad data. And it might very well have given me that idle problem that you will see later on in the video. Go ahead and update mass airflow sensor scaling table. Do we really want to? Yes. Now, let's see what changed. Every single one changed, except for the stuff that is past 3.7. Now I just have to save this tune and reflash my tune and see if it did anything. Then we just gotta connect the green test mode connectors. There we go, now we're ready to flash. Open up ECU Flash version 1.30 and then open up my tune, the one I just made with the mass airflow sensor scaling right to ECU. This part gets me every time. Okay, we turn on the key and then right after we turn on the key we hit OK. There we go, we're flashing. Oh. Yes, the operation completed successfully. I can turn off the ignition now. Oh man, we did it. So now I just have to unplug this cable and then unplug the green test mode connectors, and then we can see if this thing will even start. Alright, let's try to start it up. I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. Let's do it. Damn, I don't know what that was. That was rough. It's idling pretty normally around 500 RPM. And right now we're pretty lean. It keeps leaning out like crazy just while idling, sitting here. It feels a lot smoother, even at slow speed stuff. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels a little bit smoother. No. Still leaning out. Still leaning out. Yep, that's right. Pop the old hood back up because it turns out I have to put the stock injectors back in and then tune my mass airflow sensor, and then I can put the bigger fuel injectors back in after the mass airflow sensor is properly scaled. You can't do them both at the same time. It says it right on the guide. I just didn't read it. I should have read that before putting the fuel injectors back in. You live and you learn, guys. So I'm gonna put the old stock fuel injectors back in and then do the whole process you guys saw me do before, rescaling the mass airflow sensor. And once I get it within like a 3% correction, plus or minus, I will be ready to put in my 565cc fuel injectors. So let's get to work. I'm not going to film this process simply because I already did. I made a whole nother video about swapping in the 565cc fuel injectors and tuning for them, kind of. So you guys can check that video out. The link's in the description or up here. Back in you go. Now I just have to load up my stock ROM. Go ahead and load that up. And then right to ECU. Looks like we're flashing. It makes sense that it's Halloween because this scares me every time. Yes, the operation completed successfully. Now I just have to rescale the mass airflow sensor again, so do the same process, but this time hopefully it should work. And then I can put the injectors back in.
2 or 3 MAF rescales later.
So it turns out that I wasn't supposed to go into boost during the last logging at all. That was only supposed to be for the closed loop, which is basically 0 volts mass airflow sensor to around 2.8 volts of mass airflow sensor, and nothing above that. Above that, you're supposed to log and tune a completely different way using the open loop mass airflow sensor tuning method, which is in a completely different guide. I'll put a link to it in the description, but basically I have to do 3 pulls, 3 different logs, logging the engine speed, engine load, air fuel ratio, mass airflow sensor voltage, and throttle opening angle. And then once I get those 3 logs using these parameters, I open them up in a spreadsheet that some guy made, and then I get the numbers for the mass airflow sensor scaling after a few calculations. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm getting ready to take these 3 logs, and then I'll be able to tune for boost. Let's do it. So for these 3 logs, I'm supposed to be in 3rd gear, and I start at around 2,000 RPM all the way to red line. So we're at 2,000 right now. Let's start the log. There's 1, 2 to go. Number 3. Now we just got to get home, check out the logs, and then interpret the data. Hopefully get some new mass airflow sensor scaling numbers. So here we are on Airboy's Excel spreadsheet. Right off the bat, you have to enable editing and then enable the macros for these buttons to work. I've already done that, so I'm going to go ahead and import a CSV file, which is going to be the 3 logs that we took of 2,000 RPM to red line, wide open throttle. Those are the logs we want. Go ahead and open up the first one. And the next thing we're going to do is hit this grab headers button. Next, we want to filter the wide open throttle data, so that'll just get rid of everything that isn't wide open throttle. And now I'm going to go over to ROM Raider.
Go to my primary open loop fueling table.
And I'm going to copy the whole table, take it back over to Excel, and then we'll select the AFR target tab. And then scroll all the way down to the next blank spot right here. And then I'm going to paste it in. Now we're going to go back up to the top here and hit align and move table. And that is going to do something really cool. It's going to turn your table into a colored diagram, and it's going to use this as a reference. Now we go over to the AFR Interpolate tab and hit the clear data button. Grab headers. There we go. Now we got it. So I got to select the load data. We got RPM selected already. AFR data is coming from my air fuel sensor. The MAF voltage, we got that. And then we'll finally hit this get data button. and it's calculating a ton of stuff right now. There is the data. So this green line is the engine load, and then the red line is the air fuel sensor, and these dotted lines are just for reference. So now I'm going to save this as OL open loop mass airflow 1, and I'm going to do the same thing for the other two logs. Now that I've got all three of the Excel spreadsheets completed, I go over to the data tab of the open loop MAF tool. I'll put a link to this tool in the description, but there's also a link in the guide that I'm using. And now I'm going to clear all of these runs because that's not my data. And now I just have to import my own data from those Excel spreadsheets. And then you need only the mass airflow sensor voltage and AFR error percent. That's what we need. Got to move this table out of the way, and here it is. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of this. Quite a bit of data. Go ahead and copy that, and then head back over to the open loop MAF tool. Paste in the first run. There we go. And now I'm going to do the same thing for the other two runs. Back over here. So now I go to my map on ROM Raider and open up the mass airflow sensor scaling table. Go ahead and copy that, and then head back over to the open loop MAF tool and go over to the MAF scaling tab, and then I'm going to scroll down. No. I'm going to scroll all the way to the left where it says table 2D right there. I'm going to paste my table in right there, and then go back to the data tab, hit get scaling, and now it's doing all its calculations. Okay, the calculations are all done. So these bolded numbers are the MAF voltages at which this tool changed the scaling. So here's the old scaling. At 2.85 volts, it was at 40.1 G a second, and now it changed it to 50, so a big bump up of 10, and then the next one even higher, and then higher, and it just keeps going all the way up to 586. Next, all I have to do is copy these values into the ROM Raider scaling table. So I'm going to open up the scaling table here and then go over to 2.85 volts, which is the first one, and then I'm just going to paste into there. Enter, and there we go, 50.41, and just keep doing this all the way across. And there we go, these are all the changes. So basically this is all my open loop here from 2.8 area all the way to 4.22, which is the max of my mass airflow sensor, the max voltage that it reads. So this is all going to be where I was having problems in boost. So I'm really hoping that this right here will fix my boost problem. So I'm going to go ahead and save this edited map. And now I just have to flash this new map to my ECU and see how it works. Currently flashing that new tune I just made to my ECU about halfway through. Okay, the operation completed successfully. Alright, let's see if she'll start up. There we go. Started right up. We're definitely looking better. I think if I do that, the open loop MAF scaling, like 2 more times, we will be perfect. And then I can finally put my 565 injectors back in, because I'm sure by now we're hitting 100% duty cycle, probably way above that even. This is good news. For that first mass airflow sensor rescale and open loop, it looked like the AFRs were getting better, but every once in a while it would still lean out. The problem was still there. The AFRs just weren't matching the fueling table at all, and then I did this. Update. It snowed here in Washington, Pennsylvania for the first time, but that's not what this video is about. I made a big breakthrough. I tuned my car in a way that it only runs in open loop, so I completely disabled the closed loop operation. I'm going to disable closed loop, so I'm only running open loop. And to do that, I have to open up all of these closed loop to open loop transition delay values and change every single one to 0. Alright, and then I'm going to open up the minimum active primary open loop enrichment and change that to 14.65. And there we go, now it should only run open loop. And now the AFRs are actually matching my open loop fueling table, which it wasn't doing before. I was still too lean under boost, but now anytime I even get on the gas, AFRs hit 10. So that shows me that my open loop fueling table still needs a little bit of work. I'm still confused as to why it's not doing that in open loop. I know that the ECU has to meet a lot of requirements until it switches over to open loop, and if one of those requirements isn't met, it'll go back to closed loop and restart the whole process. So it's a big pain in the ass, and there are some people that run open loop all the time, but that's going to lead to increased fuel consumption. And I mean, Subaru designed it that way for a reason. I feel like closed loop has to be important in some way. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, please do me a favor and hit that like button, and also subscribe if you haven't already to see more videos with this car and see me turn up the boost eventually up to 10 psi. I learned a lot in this video. I still have some work to do with tuning this car, obviously, but if you guys have any tips for me,